Greetings! Thank you for lending an ear to the Voice of the Times for Saturday, February 26, 2022. Brought to you by Welcome Depot, the country's leading home improvement and construction supplies retailer. Shop conveniently 24/7 with Welcome Online Store. Just go to shop.welcome.com.ph. For today's editorial, UN must resolve its shameful discrimination problem. The problem of racism, sexism, and other forms of discrimination within the vast organization of the United Nations has become so widespread that it is causing friction between entire groups of staffers and led Secretary General Antonio Guterres to appoint a special advisor to try to bring the situation under control. In a memo distributed last month to all 36,000 plus UN staffers spread across 56 agencies and 463 duty stations around the world, the Secretary General said, "Racism and discrimination have no place in our world, least of all at the United Nations. The diversity of our personnel is a source of profound richness, yet I am fully aware and deeply concerned that colleagues have experienced the indignity, pain, and consequences of workplace racism and racial discrimination. This is unacceptable. It is unacceptable indeed. The UN should set an example for diversity and inclusiveness, and yet has done exactly the opposite by allowing racism and discrimination to fester within its own organization. Obviously, this sends the wrong message to a world that is already struggling mightily with the social ills of discrimination, whether based on ethnicity, religion, gender, or age. The optics are bad enough, but the persistence of discrimination within the UN implies an even more worrisome and insidious problem. Discrimination within the organization itself is inevitably reflected in the work done by the UN's various agencies and multitude of personnel. A development program for predominantly Muslim communities somewhere in the world, for example, is not likely to be pursued as effectively as it ought to be if the staffers responsible for carrying it out harbor a prejudice against Muslim people. Steps taken to determine the extent of discrimination in the UN and find solutions to eliminate it, the UN Secretariat recently outlined a number of steps. First, the Joint Inspection Unit, or JIU. The UN's independent external oversight body has launched a survey for UN staffers it described in a circular as a system-wide review of measures and mechanisms for preventing and addressing racism and racial discrimination, or RRD, in the institutions of the United Nations system. According to the JIU, the survey will examine the various forms of RRD at the individual, institutional, and structural levels and the measures and mechanisms in place, including cultural and contextual factors that facilitate or constrain efforts by organizations. Second, Secretary General Guterres last month announced that he would appoint a special advisor to investigate the growing discrimination based on racial, national, or ethnic origins in the world body. He also said that his office would establish a steering group to oversee implementation of a strategic action plan on discrimination, which would presumably result from the work of the JIU and the special advisor. The steering group would be required to provide regular progress updates to the UN's executive management committees. Third, a number of groups of marginalized people among UN staffers have formed as a result of the continuing discrimination and are apparently helping to guide the campaign against it. These include the United Nations People of African Descent, or UNPAD, UN Globe of LGBTQ Community, the UN Feminist Network, and the Asian Network for Diversity and Inclusion, or UNANGI. While there are high hopes that the UN can make quick progress in rooting out and eliminating discrimination within its organization, some remain skeptical. as even searching the problem in a non-discriminatory way has apparently been more than the UN Secretariat can handle so far. In an infamous incident last year, the UN Secretariat was forced to abruptly withdraw an online survey on racism after protests from staffers. In the survey, staffers were asked to identify themselves as either black, brown, white, yellow, mixed or multiracial, or any other characterizations that managed to offend almost everybody, but especially Asian staffers. According to some current and former UN personnel who saw the survey, it was taken down within a day or two of starting, but without the UN Secretariat acknowledging the problem or issuing an apology for it. And that's the editorial for Saturday, February 26, 2022. For more news and information, get a copy of the Manila Times on print, subscribe to its digital edition, or log on to www.manilatimes.net. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, and listen to the voice of the Times.